The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
Welcome to Mental Health Now. I'm your host, Matthew Shapiro from NAMI-New York State, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And again, for those who watched our last episode, we're really excited to continue this great conversation we're having about hope, not only hope, but how hope starts with you and how we all play a role in introducing hope to our community. So again, I am so honored to be joined by Michael Saccocio, who's the Executive Director of the Schenectady City Mission, and my colleague Tina Lee, who is our Community Education and Outreach Manager. So again, it's so wonderful to have you both on the show for this great discussion. I think this is I know it's the first time we've done a two-part episode, but I think this conversation that we're having is so important. And you know, we kind of discussed hope a lot in our first half, our last episode, but you know, maybe just taking a step back, and how do you guys define hope? If someone said to you, you know, Mike, you guys are bringing hope to people, but what is hope? I mean, why is it so important? And you know, so how do you define hope?
Well, you know, I think hope, it's an interesting word. It's a simple word, right? Yeah. But, you know, it's a robust feeling, you know. Yes. Feeling hopeful means, you know, maybe feeling happy, you know. But I think also what's so important is that, you know, you can't have hope just based on self-determination, you know, being empowered by that. You know, there has to be, like, you know, the City Mission offers is opportunities, right? Yes. If you can't have that that combo, you know, you can't actualize your dreams, you know, when you have those, that being hopeful, right? So, you know, again, I think, you know, it really comes down to having the opportunity to, you know, pay it forward, also be able to be humble enough to receive it too. You know, I think a lot of our families, you know, feel that, oh, well, I don't need that. You know, like my loved one has the illness. What do I need to learn? I don't need to change, right? So being open about knowing that, you know, from both ends, you know, this is a partnership, it is a collaboration, and, you know, again, community, I think, needs to be accountable too. Yes. You know, as we all know, you know, not that we're at fault for homelessness, but, you know, we're part of the solution, right? We can't be the only one saying, well, you know, that person's doing wrong, or, you know, like Matthew was mentioning, that homeless is not a choice, you know, having a mental illness is not a choice, right? But where does this whole combination, this puzzle fit together, that, you know, we are the only ones that can change. And so, you know, I think implementing hope is not that, you know, you will not only receiving it for yourself, but you giving somebody else hope, you know. So it's a very symbiotic, I think, relationship. It's not one-dimensional. It's very fluid, and there's not just one, you know, definition of that. But, you know, I know that, you know, at the City Mission, you've done amazing things, and we were just talking about all the programs that you offer. I mean, it's amazing how you can, you know, make this whole thing work for folks. So very impressive. Very impressive.
No, I think what you said is so true. Hope can't be actualized without community, because no one can do it alone. And I think a healthy community embraces that by helping my neighbor. That doesn't diminish me. Right? You were talking about a growth mentality. It's not zero sum. If I help you, that's not for your benefit and to my decrease. No, in fact, I'm helped as well. When a community catches the joy of that symbiotic relationship, that by helping each other we all grow, great things can happen. And I think for us at the Mission, hope is when people come to believe that the future can be different than the present, or different from the past, and that their choices can help make that happen. We meet so many people that just have stopped believing that. They don't believe things can change. And if you don't believe things can change, you have no incentive for education, or entry-level employment, or health in general, right? Because all those things are premised on the belief that by making decisions today, I can bring a better future. So I think hope is the most important commodity that we're all looking to share and invest.
Right. You know, the way I look at it, it's kind of something that I think is both in the communities that you serve in, so homelessness, and is that I think when people come to us, they feel stuck, right? Hopeless, right?
Right,
They're
right.
stuck where they are. They
Yep.
can't see themselves moving linear. So you're like in the middle of a sea, right? You feel like you're drowning. To me, hope is the wind that pushes your sail forward. But you touched on something. You kind of led me to where I wanted to go. Anyway, we're talking about community because you have another great story about the power of the mission. Now, one of the very unique things I think separates the Schenectady mission from other homeless shelters or things like that is you're so ingrained in the community, right? So normally you would find a homeless shelter maybe on the outskirts of town, not the best part of town. And we know Schenectady has done a great job with revitalization in downtown Schenectady and Proctor's. And you guys are really a part of that revitalization, which most people would think that doesn't really make sense. I don't see the correlation. But you tell a great story about when you went over to talk to Philip Morris at Proctor's and said you want to be community partners. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, and at the end of our first episode together, we talked about that we're also advocates that the people we serve have much to offer, and the community needs their giftedness. So as Schenectady was revitalizing, we are right in the middle of that in downtown Schenectady. We didn't want to be the place you don't go to.
Right.
We didn't want to be that group that all this stuff is good, but be careful over there. So how do we become part of a revitalized community? So I did go to see Philip Morris, and the basic question was, how can City Mission help Proctor's be more successful? And Philip is a great man with great vision and a great heart, and he was engaged by that question, and he identified that a need they had, this was 9 years ago, was that as new people were coming to downtown, he wished that there were greeters, people who made them feel welcome, to just simply provide sidewalk hospitality. So we said, okay, we'll do that, and we did a 3-month trial where City Mission residents, our more senior residents and staff, we went out every night. There was a show at Proctor's, and we just greeted people. Now, as time went on, we got a little more sophisticated. We started opening doors. We started bringing umbrellas out in the rain. We started crossing people in the street. We started getting command of where the restaurants were, and it became so popular. At the end of the 3 months, we were asked by the business district that they would be willing to pay our folks to continue this as an ongoing program. So we called ourselves the Downtown Ambassadors. It's been going for 9 years. It has produced many jobs for people. It has clearly been something that's built hope. The most important thing the ambassadors do for our folks is it helps them realize, I have something important to offer. They realize that it's not somebody else's revitalization, it is theirs. They are invested in it, they're protective of it, they're enthusiastic about it. And the business community has realized that our folks, for all the struggles they've had, they have very unique experiences, very unique gifts that downtown needs. So what we are celebrating in downtown, Tina, is the very thing you described. There's a symbiotic relationship that it's not business or helping people in need, that in a very real way we can create something where we're all working together to build a more vibrant community. We're proud of it. It's a growing, going program. And I just love sharing it as a message of hope for other communities. Don't settle for being at odds with each other. That's not inevitable. At the end of the day, we're all in this together. Let's bring our gifts and our needs to the table and figure out how to form a team.
And Tina, I was going to say too, I think you kind of touched on it when we were talking about the walk, but something that we're doing similar is like our Lunch and Learn program with businesses, because I think you say businesses are catching on to this as well, that these aren't somebody else's problems. The benefit, when one benefits, we all benefit, right? It's a collective. And how important mental health in the workplace is. We need to do an episode just on that, actually. But people don't realize that depression is the #1 cause for lost work days. So it's costing businesses millions of dollars. So they're realizing the benefits of having a mentally healthy workplace and bringing these discussions in. And like Tina kind of just dipped her toe in the water in doing this, and the reaction's been like a tidal wave.
Oh, yeah,
that's
wonderful.
exciting.
It is. And so, we go in and, we talk about, and it's interesting because, first I thought if we just kind of went in, like, as you mentioned, light and airy, that might be better. But, a lot of businesses really want to get down to the nitty gritty. They want us to talk about the warning signs that we may see in a person that's having a mental health crisis. Suicide warning signs. They want us to talk about, what's that conversation sound like? To ask somebody, hey, are you suicidal? What can I do to help you? So it was a little surprising on my part to realize that, this is as Matthew mentioned, it's pervasive, in not only in our world as a NAMI community, but, in local businesses. And many business owners even were surprised at how many of their own employees were struggling, and how dedicated they were, that they never missed a day at work, that their loved one might have been in the hospital, but they chose to come to work with a smile on their face, 110%. And I think that changed also the synergy, in the company, because one owner said to me, it just made me realize, how important my employee is to me, how much they love their job, and that, they were here every single day, and they never mentioned to me. But it also made him feel very sad, because he said, if my employee had cancer, or their loved one had, some sort of illness, they would come to me, or I would notice that if they were sneezing, or coughing, I would notice that. But I had no idea. And here, this woman has her daughter in the hospital, and she's comes promptly to work every day, even though she has to travel almost 2 hours to see her daughter every day. She never came to work late. It was so interesting to see where, that relationship blossomed, because that employee came up to us to talk, and she was okay to speak. Her boss is standing there, but she was willing to speak.
What I hear you're doing is you're breaking the silos.
Absolutely.
It's not
breaking
we're a
the
business
silence.
and you're helping people mental. You know what? We need each other.
Yes. Right. Yep.
Because mental illness doesn't end at the doors of NAMI.
No.
It's in the community. It's in the workplace.
Right.
So I think the business owners realize we need you. You have an expertise, a skill set that we need in our workplace because we care about our employees, because we need productivity. These are the win-wins that we need to start identifying and celebrating. I believe our public discourse has kind of become so divisive, and perhaps there's a place for that, but we're becoming blind to the win-wins that are right in our community. Let's not miss them, and this is clearly one of them.
And I think what's so important that you had mentioned, sort of that, that keeping points, right? It's not about keeping points, because truly, I think we can all agree that, if one party wins and the other party loses, we both lose. Right? It's either win-win or lose-lose, right? And I think once we set aside all that, we realize, we have to depend on each other. We really cannot. The way the system is now with mental health, we can't work in our separate silos anymore. We do have to reach out, and that's the humanly thing to do, right? And we need to have that connection.
It's where the problem of limited resources is the blessing. If we're not doing the garbage, it's forcing us to have to link arms, come out of our silos. We need each other. There's going to be a great opportunity in that.
And necessity is the mother of all invention. One thing that you talked about before, which is so interesting, that both our communities offer a real unique perspective. People from our people with mental illness have been homeless, they have a very unique perspective. But both of these groups of people are often very overlooked, right? People don't think we can learn from them or the impact. But you tell a beautiful story, and to me it was the most moving story you told when I first heard about the as you described in your own words, but the scary-looking gentleman at the mission who you ended up taking up in your own house, and the impact that he had on your family and your boys. Can you talk a little bit about that?
He was a man that I knew from City Mission, that he was scary-looking. I kind of kept a respectful distance. And what I never could imagine is he became a part of our family through a series of events, and I learned that this guy that I was avoiding was intelligent, articulate, thoughtful, and he had many needs as well. And so we formed as what families do. We had things we could offer him, and he had things he could offer us. And one thing he offered us that every day I'm grateful for is he became very close with my two sons, began to show them how blessed they were in life, that the things that they were taking for granted were very special. He helped them become grateful young men. We would even go to restaurants, and this is a man who had so little, and he would say, "Boys, do you see that waitress? She doesn't even make minimum wage. Give her the most you can. Never give a 15%. That's just the beginning." And these boys would watch this man who had so little put what he had in his pocket, and those young minds, those young eyes and ears were taking it all in. And to the day he died, I was able to tell him, "I can't ever repay you for what you gave my family. And you have a legacy in the lives of my son." So something that began only as me saying, I need to help him. There was that. That was part of the relationship. What I never could imagine is he would change our lives in such a positive way. That's what we offer, whether it's NAMI or City Mission. We need your help, but we have something special that will enrich your life as well.
Well, it's very interesting because the New York State Office of Mental Health has a new program that I think is very interesting and has this type of transformative power. It's called the Family Care Program. And, you know, as we discussed, so many people living with a mental illness are struggling to find a safe and a safe place to live and a loving place to live. Well, families can take somebody in who has had a mental illness. I think you get a subsidy and they're coming out of the hospital in that very vulnerable time. And you can take somebody into your home and have them become part of their family. I think to many people that sounds like something that would be scary, but as we started this whole conversation, you never know where opportunity can lie or where opportunity will come from. And someone that, you know, who you'd be afraid to take into your house can totally turn your whole life upside down for the positive. And it's, you know, something very generous you can do. But again, you're giving it as much for yourself as you're giving to that person, right?
That is the right perspective on it.
Right. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that program, you can go to the New York State Office of Mental Health website and look up the Family Care Program. It is very new, just in the last couple of months, but I think it does have so much power to provide hope both to the person who's getting the shelter as well as the people who are taking them in. Now, unfortunately, we still have some episode left, but I know we have to get Mike out because he has a meeting. So I want to, just before you leave, if people are watching this and hopefully they're inspired about the incredible work you're doing at the City Mission, how can people get involved in the mission? Where are opportunities for people to volunteer and to give back?
Well, we love involvement. We need involvement. We like to say at City Mission, volunteers are not the icing on the cake, they are the cake. So I believe last year we had 37,000 hours of volunteer service, so we're passionate. The best way to do it is we have a website, very simple, citymission.com. And there's a section, how can I help? You can register online. What we like to do is have folks come down for a tour, get to see the mission and find out where the right fit is. It can be a one-time volunteer thing or something more regular, but we love to work with potential volunteers and build a working partnership. So one of the best parts of being at the mission is we need others. That necessity helps us be creative and building a real winning team that can do some wonderful work together.
And do you get whole families that volunteer together? And I think that's so important for children to learn, like you say, the way your boys, even with knowing the work that you do, and I'm sure they've been to the mission growing up, but really seeing that, learning from just that one person and the impact it can make on their whole lives. And I know it made them better boys, and I know you're very proud that now they're better men because of it. And it's something to be very proud of. So we're going to take a quick break so we can let Mike go, and then Tina and I are going to wrap up the conversation. But Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the show and for all the incredible work you do.
For me. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for bringing
joy
hope
to be with
so
you
many.
both.
Oh, it was joy having you. So we will be right back. So we're back. I'm still joined by my colleague and someone you're lucky when you can call a colleague a friend, but my friend Tina. So as we were I think we learned so much from Mike, and there's so many parallels between the communities he serves and the communities we serve. But you know, one thing I want to dig into a little deeper as we talk about mental health and families and the need for hope is that, like we said, when we get families, they're at their worst. So before you came to us at NAMI New York State, you were at NAMI Mid-Hudson, and you were in some ways doing different jobs, but in some ways a little more on the front lines, and you get your helpline calls and stuff like that. So a lot of times, I'm sure that you get these families in desperate. What's the first thing you would tell people who have they're new to this mental health world? Their kid has just been diagnosed, their sibling, whatever the relationship might be. In my case, like I said, with my mom. But how do you first let them know things are going to be okay? This is not the end. People. There's that thing, the semicolon tattoos. Because the semicolon's not the end of a period. Right. So how do we let people know that there is hope?
Right. I think it's really important to be real about it too. We can't sugarcoat it. We don't know how that's going to end, right? But I think when we do get those phone calls in, it's so important to allow that family to feel, to feel validated, to say, you're right, it is scary, and you have every right to be angry, but to allow them to, to talk about it. I think, a lot of families don't have the opportunity because we as human beings, I think, want to fix things. Right? So, and I think one of the most profound things I learned when one of the teachers, when I was doing a training, said, the same letters in listen are the same letters in silent. Okay. And, when I really embrace that, think, not more is not always good, to allow that family to just, whether it's cry, or get angry, to let them share, their experience with me and to say, okay, you know what, you're right, and then to validate, to say, you're absolutely right. You have every right to be angry, or, it's so sad that your loved one, lost their job, or that, they
had to drop out of school or take a pause.
Right.
We were just reading that story from one of the former, one of your former, but she's still a member of NAMI, but Hudson didn't even know you're not, but about, how she had to take a break from school, and that's okay. We all, I think as people tend to set certain goals for ourselves, right? And it doesn't take much to knock us off, and then we think we failed, right? This is something like you and Allie and I have talked about a lot.
Absolutely.
I'll say it, I'm on TV, I'm not embarrassed to say it. I didn't get my driver's license till I was well into my 30s. I grew up in New York. I never needed New York City. I never needed it, and then I think my own anxiety, my ADHD, I was scared to do it. I think we build these challenges up in your mind. Lost hope, right?
That's right.
And again, I just need my person ends up being my wife believing in me. You can do this, and I think part of the reason I never learned to drive is no one taught me, right? So she was truly brave enough to teach me, and her roommate at the time, big credit to her roommate Ashley, who was really brave enough to teach me how to drive. But again, it just takes that one person. And I know Allie was struggling with that because she was like in her early 20s and had gotten her driver's license. Something that seems so small, but it's like the world. And to me, getting my driver's license was the biggest accomplishment I ever had, because to me, it was something that was so unobtainable. Like I had just given up hope that I was ever going to get it.
That's right.
So what's so important, how do you keep people from giving up hope? I mean, what's your advice? I mean, you and I have been through this journey for years now, both, with loved ones, and we know, like Michael said, they're always, people have watched this show a lot, has heard me say this, another Matthew, the road to recovery is never straight and smooth. It's bumpy and curvy. So we know those bumps and those curves along the road are going to be, are to be expected. How do we, how do you not give up hope? You think like someone like when we were talking about Allie being on the show, she's been doing great for years. She's like a model of recovery. You'd point to Allie, well, the day she was supposed to be was not a good day.
Not a good day.
Not a good day at all. But we got through it,
right?
But how do you, what advice would you give to people when those bumps start, when the road gets curvy?
Well, I mean, I think from a clinical side, we'd always talk about making sure we have that relapse plan, right? And making sure you're aware of what's out there, and of course, a lot of people don't want to talk about relapse, but, we have to be realistic. That is part of recovery, is falling down, right? But it's how to get back up. I think that's always critical, right? So, again, as for family members, I think, we have to sometimes watch our loved one trip. Because, for some reason, the learning curve is very different for our loved ones. And of course, if we're talking about homicide or suicide, of course we have to, rush in there to help. But there's sometimes when you, have to step back, and to let your loved one know what that is, to trip a little bit and to be able to recover from that trip, to be able to get up. And so I think for families, it's difficult when, you lose that hope and then say, okay, this is never going to happen, but it can happen, and to keep, I think, also radically accepting, which is a very interesting concept,
My mind. So we did have, a few back in the fall, we had Dr. Perry Hoffman on the show, who talked about suicide and borderline personality disorder, but also about dialectical behavioral therapy, and a big part of that is radical acceptance. As we talked about dreams and stuff like that, we all have dreams for ourselves and our loved ones, and that radical acceptance is we accept that the person is where they are now. They're at point B. We want them to be at point C or D or E. But right now they're at point A, and we have to accept that they're at point A, help them get to point B before they can get right. So
And I think also important is to understand that, at that moment, like you mentioned, right, our loved one is doing the best they can.
Right.
We're doing the best we can, right? We can all do better. Right. And I think that's where that hope is that, okay, maybe right now it's not like that day. It wasn't going to happen. Right. It didn't matter what. I could have bribed Allie $1 million. She wasn't going to do it, right? And to not be angry with it, to say, okay, you know what? That's okay. Not today, maybe tomorrow, and like you said, with the driving, not right now, but maybe later, So I think keeping the conduit open, not shutting the door is important to say, okay, right now I have to radically accept that this is what's happening to me. It's not great, but also to validate your own emotions that this actually is not where I want to be. But what can I do to get there? What can I do to have my loved one also get there? And to, I think not pre-offer opportunities, to open up the opportunity and have that conversation. And I think that's what our classes are so good at with the communication skills too, to teach our families how to have that conversation with your loved one and say, I want the best for you. You deserve the best. Okay, what can we do to get there? Tell me what you want to do. I don't think many families have asked their loved ones that. And I think,
and that's we talk a lot about like working as a recovery team because it takes a team.
That's right.
We talked with Mike about community and
absolutely.
that no one can do anything alone. It takes a team. Yep. And but making sure that you work as a team. You have open communication, shared goals. Your goal for your loved one might be something totally different than what their goal is. So making sure that we understand it and that is shared goals and shared communication is so important. So we're actually running out of time too. But one thing I want to talk about is so important in this hope and another Matthewism, if you will, is the airplane metaphor, that you have to put the oxygen on yourself before you can help. So how do you tell people who are in this struggle or fighting for the loved ones the importance of self-care? And you were talking about wellness when you were talking about the walk before, but how that's played into your role as a caregiver. And
I think a lot of families, feel that, okay, this thing is going to just go away. So I'm just going to put 110% physically, emotionally, financially, everything into this and call it a day. And, as you mentioned, that metaphor of the oxygen mask, the flight attendant always says, put that oxygen mask on yourself first, which is a very foreign concept, I think, to say, I'm not being selfish right now to go take a walk or a nap, or to say no, or to set limits, that's self-preservation, because we can't be good for our loved one if we're not good for ourselves, right? And I think that is a true lesson that we learn and support at NAMI, is that it's okay not to do it all. We, like you said, no, and the expectation shouldn't be that. That's not. If your loved one had cancer, you wouldn't be expected to be up 24/7, 365, right? There's the downtime, and so it's okay to reach out, and that's what I think is the beautiful thing about NAMI, is that it's really the NAMI family, right? We have so many people out there that get it, that are willing to help, to be willing to support us.
And, it's so amazing. I think part of it too is that kind of looking at like mental health as a villain, or mental illness as a villain, excuse me, or these ills, and you feel like you need to be a superhero to fight that villain. But none of us are superheroes, right? We're all human. None of us have superpowers, but I would argue that we do have the super, because we all do have that power to give love and to give hope, and you don't need to be a superhero to do that. Anyone could help somebody. Anyone can help awareness. We hope everyone participates in our walk that Tina mentioned earlier on September 29th, because as we talk about all the time here, and as this title of the show is, that hope truly starts with you. Everyone could be a good neighbor. Everyone could be a good friend. Everyone could be a good relative. And I hope this hour, those past 2 episodes have really given you an insight of the need of hope and how we all can provide hope and be our own superheroes and fight the villains. And most importantly, as we always say here on Mental Health Now, hope starts with you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.